We don't really have data. We do have a lot of anecdotal evidence right now that the wealthy are leaving high-tax cities and states during COVID. Your app is kind of an early window into that. What are you seeing? How many wealthy people are leaving New York City and even the high-tax states of the Northeast?
Right. Well, thanks for having me on the show, Robert and Tyler. You're exactly right. I mean, in fact, even before the COVID situation hit, we were seeing spikes in terms of people leaving the Northeast states or just high tax states in general, whether it was the Northeast or on the West Coast, places like California, to move to lower or no tax states. And that was triggered in part by the Trump Tax Act that essentially capped the amount of deduction you could take on your state and local taxes on your federal return. Now, with COVID and companies, I mean, we've all seen, unfortunately, massive disruptions around the world in terms of companies mandating work from home. And so many folks are looking at that situation and saying, hey, I can be anywhere. And for a multitude of reasons, they choose to move away. And that's only picking up. So I think you mentioned this. We've seen an increase in terms of paying subscribers on our individual products specifically. Of about 2.5 times in the months of May and June compared to the same time last year. On the enterprise side of our business, we're seeing about 2.5 to 3 times as much interest in the same time period compared to the same period last year, because companies are also grappling with this new era of distributed workforce that they don't have any visibility or real control into.
Let me ask you a quick question about someone. Excuse me, Robert, for jumping in here. I'm wondering, do you expect that the city of New York will try and challenge the idea that a worker who formerly worked at 30 Rock is now working out of his or her home in Greenwich or Bergen County, New Jersey, and say, well, hey, wait a minute, that's not how this was supposed to work? What do you think they're going to come after those folks?
It's, what I can tell you is that from what we have seen by way of the data from New York State Tax Department, for example, data that we have secured at Topia, which is the owner of Monaeo now, that shows that New York states like New York aren't just standing by and watching this tax revenue leave their state, right? I mean, every time a wealthy person leaves or a company moves out of a state like New York, that's a big hit to the tax revenue for that state. And they're not taking that easily. So we've seen very significant increases in the audit activity level, which is essentially the state saying, hey, we're going to just be more diligent about enforcing the laws that exist on the books and try to get our fair share of the revenue that we are owed. So absolutely, they're not going to stand by. As it relates to the laws specifically, well, today the law allows for it, technically speaking. But yes, I wouldn't be surprised if they look at that and try to reevaluate it in a scenario where fiscal balance sheets are taking a hit all around, whether it's companies or taxpayers. So I think everyone's trying to do the best they can. Just
to finish on that point, just to explain what your product does. So it tracks people's location, which sounds a little creepy. Maybe people might not be willing to do that, but they can use it really for audit defense. So how effective is it if you go to the auditors who say, we're not sure you were out of New York long enough to no longer pay taxes? How does your app data help them? Does it guarantee that they'll see through that audit, or do they have to have a lot of other stuff to prove they were out of the state?
Right, that's a great question. So, Robert, I think we've talked about this before. Monaeo is now a Topia company, and we have a variety of different products and offerings that help break down the barriers that allow companies and individuals to live and work anywhere. The specific product you're referring to is the Monaeo Personal Edition, which is an app-based product that does help individuals that are, say, changing their domicile or tax residency actually be able to create a digital record that helps them establish that tax residency status and then be able to defend it effectively in an audit, which is almost inevitable when you're high income and you're moving out of the state. So the short answer to your question is no, it's not a silver bullet. It does not guarantee a win in an audit. I think really nothing can. There is no silver bullet, maybe aside from you inserting a chip into your brain and using data out of that. But, we're not in that business, and I don't expect that is happening anytime soon. But what we have seen is that for our clients over the last several years, they've had a near perfect success rate in terms of being able to leverage this data out of their service with Monaeo Personal Edition and being able to represent themselves in audits with their tax advisors.
Great. Anupam, thanks so much. Something we're going to keep a close eye on in the coming months and even next tax year. Thanks for joining us. Tyler, back to you.
Robert, thank you very much as well.